Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. His fist rattles the door short, hard, fast. I shove the latch up with my forearm. Silence drains, then another burst hammers the frame. If I open now, everything shifts again. I'm Nate, 31, and I already know the ending. I hold the knob, skin slick, muscles locked and burning. Through the peephole he sways, shoulders tight, eyes wild. One turn the wrong way and I live with it. Please, his mouth forms it like a cough. I keep breathing slow, counting 4, holding 4. I'll be quiet, he adds, forehead pressed to wood. My jaw tightens because quiet never lasts. A neighbor's door cracks, then clicks shut. Eli hears it and straightens like he's on stage. I got nowhere tonight, he mumbles, bag sliding down. That word, nowhere, sticks like a hook. I slide the chain halfway, stupid, automatic, hopeful. He leans in, one boot toe past the line. Just a shower, he tries, palms open, voice wrecked. I push the door back and he stiffens. You said boundaries, he taps the frame, small, steady. My fingers curl so tight my nails bite. I picture the last time, plates flying, sirens near. I blink hard because memory lies when begged. 2 nights, he bargains, chin up, breath jerky. I'll follow your plan, swear no drama. He drags the bag closer with one toe. That inch forward feels like a mile. I unlock, then relock, muscle memory fighting mercy. He watches my hands with a flat half smile. Choose, he whispers, voice thin but precise. I hate that he's right about the choice. My phone buzzes in my pocket 3 times. I don't look because looking breaks the stance. If it's the crisis team, timing is brutal. If it's no one, I'm even more alone. 5 minutes inside, he says, shoulders sagging in defeat. Then I'm gone if you still want that. He lifts both palms like he's unarmed. My throat tightens because he knows my tells. I crack the door an inch, air shifts, tension spikes. He smells like rain and stale smoke, familiar, dangerous. Rules on the fridge, I mutter, already regretting it. He nods fast and the inch becomes 3. Shoes off, my voice lands harsher than planned. He toes them off, clumsy, eyes flicking everywhere. No guests, no late night spirals in the kitchen. A twitch at his cheek says I pushed too far. He steps in, then stops like he hit glass. Can I wash up first, he asks, head low. I point down the hall, heart kicking hard. He moves and the door snicks shut behind me. Water starts, I count the seconds, 12, 13. I listen for drawers, for clinks, for old patterns. Nothing yet, only water and a muffled cough. I breathe, but I don't relax. The water cuts off too quick, not cleansing. He returns, damp, hoodie darker, eyes scanning edges. I'll sleep on the floor, he offers, voice careful. He waits and the waiting is a blade. Couch, I answer, one word, no softener. He lowers the bag, then hovers like gravity failed. I'm trying, he mutters, fingers twitching, jaw tight. I nod, but nodding never saved anyone. My phone lights again, unknown number, brief flash. I thumb the side button, then shove it away. Eli watches that move like a chess read. He knows back up when he sees it. He pulls a folded paper from his pocket. Discharge notes, he says, almost joking, almost brave. He sets them on the table and steps back. My stomach drops because paperwork means fallout. I don't touch the paper, I look at him. Eyes red, hands steady, shoulders threadbare and stubborn. What happens if I can't sleep tonight? He waits. My answer will set the fuse. You wake me once, we call support if needed. He swallows like the word support tastes bad. No cops, he adds, small, urgent, unwavering. That old line draws blood every time. A thud upstairs, someone drops something heavy. We both flinch, then lock eyes like suspects. He laughs once short, then clamps it down. That laugh is a crack I can't ignore. Food later, I say, not a question. He nods, but his gaze slips past me. I can stay out of the way, he tries. There is no way in a 1-bedroom. I angle toward the kitchen, not turning my back. He gets the hint and sinks onto the couch. Hands folded tight, heel bouncing, eyes on the door. That door matters more than I do. I fill a glass, water sloshes, my pulse tracks it. He takes it without looking, gulps, almost chokes. Thanks, he murmurs, voice frayed, eyes finally landing. He waits for forgiveness that doesn't exist. My phone vibrates again, long, insistent, stopping. He glances at my pocket, then at the chain. You called someone, he says, not asking, testing me. I inhale because truth keeps me upright. I asked for advice earlier, I state clean contained. If we wobble, they swing by, short visit. His shoulders rise, then lock like a pulled wire. We just touch the real tripwire. He stands, then sits, then stands again. I can handle tonight, breath thin, fists unclenching slowly. He places the empty glass on the table. It lands too hard and both of us flinch. I'll earn the couch, he pushes, eyes burning steady. No chaos, no late night noise, no breaking stuff. He offers his phone like collateral, screen dark. That gesture is new and it scares me. I take the phone, then place it down. We do it together, I answer, voice flat, firm. If you slip, we call and you stay safe. Safe is the word that decides everything. The couch springs creaked once, then twice, then nothing. I lay awake listening for footsteps, breath, trouble. My phone face down on the nightstand thrummed again. I let it buzz out in the dark. Can I use the kitchen? His voice hovered at the door. I sat up fast, heart hammering, throat dry. Keep it quiet, I answered, feet on the floor. He paused like the request stung more than noise. Cabinet tap, a muffled clatter, then a stillness. I stayed in the doorway, not crossing that gap. He poured water and watched it settle like evidence. I'm okay, he said, shoulders hunched, eyes low. You sleeping at all? I kept my tone level. A bit, he shrugged, rubbing his wrist with focus. Thought tea might help, he added, voice held tight. The mug trembled in his grip like a warning. I need your phone for the night, my words landed flat. He looked at the counter, then up, then nodded. Fine, he said, sliding it across with 2 fingers. I caught it and the silence got heavier. Alarm at 8, he added, eyes on the sink. I'll wake you if it fails, I said, already tense. He smiled without humor, then stilled his hands. Don't wake me for nothing, he whispered, jaw set. A thud from upstairs snapped both heads upward. We waited, counting breaths, waiting for more trouble. Nothing came, just the buzzing light of nerves. He exhaled and set the mug down hard. You locking the door again? He studied the latch. Yes, I answered, matching his stare without blinking. He nodded like that was math, not a verdict. Good, he said, then pinched the bridge of his nose. He moved back to the couch and lay rigid. I stayed by the doorway, palms pressed together. Want a blanket? I asked, already regretting the offer. I'm warm, he said, and turned to face the wall. Minutes dragged, stretched, snapped, then the floor creaked. I opened the crisis number on my screen. My thumb hovered until he breathed steady again. I closed it, but the option hung open. Thanks for trying, he murmured without looking over. You're not a burden if we stick to structure. That's the hardest part, he said, fingers tapping wood. The tapping sped up like a fuse. Hands still, I said softly, stepping closer to him. His fingers froze, then tucked under his arm. Right, he breathed, face turned toward the cushion. I stepped back and kept my eyes on the ceiling. A message popped on his locked screen anyway. Unknown number, the preview flashed and vanished. He reached for it on instinct, then pulled back. Spam, he muttered, voice dry, self-control thin. You want me to hold it? I checked, steady. Do it, he replied, rolling onto his back. I'll ask in the morning if I need it. That concession felt solid, but only for minutes. The couch frame groaned and then stilled completely. I tiptoed back to my room and left the door open. Air moved through the apartment like a held breath. I lay down fully dressed, shoes touching the floor. A low sound, not words, from the living room. I rose again, every step deliberate, every muscle tight. He sat upright, knees to chest, eyes locked on nothing. You want the hotline or a ride? I asked. Hotline first, he managed, knuckles pressed white together. I dialed and put it on speaker between us. A calm voice greeted us and set a rhythm. He matched it slowly, like learning to breathe again. Any sharp objects nearby? The voice asked gently. I scanned the room and shook my head once. He pointed toward his bag without looking at me. I slid it behind me and sat back down. Do you feel safe to try sleep? The voice continued. Maybe, he said, blinking hard, voice clearing barely. I'll stay in the doorway a while, I promised quietly. He nodded once, then rested his head carefully. The call ended and the room felt thinner. He curled on his side, breath shallow but steady. I watched the clock tick 3 minutes, then 5. The 6th minute stretched into a dare. Wake me if the thoughts flood, I said from the frame. He lifted a hand and let it fall once. I waited until his arms loosened and stayed still. Then I returned to my room and left the door cracked. Dawn crept in like an appointment I couldn't cancel. The alarm on my phone chirped 8 times, then stopped. He rolled over and squinted toward the hallway gap. Still here, he murmured like testing reality. Breakfast later, I said, grabbing my keys and wallet. I'll shower quick, he answered, already standing carefully. Leave the door unlocked while I'm inside, I added. He met my eyes, then gave a single nod. Water ran and my shoulders finally lowered 1 inch. I texted work that I'd be late and waited. No reply, just read receipt and an ellipsis. I pocketed my phone as the water cut off. He stepped out calmer, hair dripping, jaw unclenched. I can handle today, he said, tying his laces. Text me if you wobble, I said, voice firm. He held my gaze like a promise was forming. At the threshold, he hesitated, then reached for the chain. Leave it, I told him, voice low but decisive. If you stay under the same rules. He exhaled through his nose, then dropped his hand. I'll come back by 6, he offered, standing straighter. 6 sharp, I answered, gripping the knob tighter. Don't test the window, I added, looking past him. He flinched, then nodded once like he deserved that reminder. He stepped into the hall and glanced left, then right. I watched his back until the elevator doors closed. The apartment held the shape of him without relief. I locked the door and waited for the knock I feared. The buzzer drilled 3 times before I reached the panel. Early, I said into the speaker, voice tight, jaw locked. I need inside now, came back, clipped and breathless. I pressed the release and braced for impact. He pushed through with 2 crumpled bags and jittery steps. Bathroom first, he blurted, eyes scanning for exits. Door stays cracked, I said, palm flat on the frame. He nodded once, then disappeared while water thundered. My pocket vibrated, his backup phone from last night. A message flashed from an unknown contact with urgency. Where are you? Bring what you owe, last chance. I swallowed hard and turned the screen face down. He returned fast, hands shaking, sleeves damp, breathing sharp. I need my phone, he said, color gone from his cheeks. After we sit and set the evening plan. Now, he snapped and his heels scraped the floor. Sit, I countered, pointing to the couch without blinking. He paced instead, short lines like a trapped runner. What if they come here? He asked, voice low. They, I repeated because that word changed everything. He raked both hands through his hair and stopped. No visitors, I reminded him, tone even, posture braced. So I'm target practice in the hallway, he scoffed. He jammed his fists into his pockets and stared down. Call the number with me, I offered, palm open. We sort it or we call for help. He flinched at help like it burned through skin. Give me the phone, I'll fix it. I placed it on the table and didn't move. If the threat is real, we call backup. Not cops, he fired, shoulders rising, eyes hard. Then mobile team, I said, keeping each word steady. He lunged for the phone, then froze mid-reach. His chest hitched twice, then he pulled back slowly. Fine, he exhaled, knuckles white, jaw trembling, gaze unfixed. Put it on speaker and mute if needed. I dialed once, twice, no pickup, then voicemail. He laughed softly, short and bitter, eyes sliding away. See, he muttered, moving toward the door. I stepped aside, blocking the handle with my forearm. We stay inside until we have a plan. He stared at my arm like it insulted him. That's your comfort talking, he said, chin lifting. It's also safety, I answered, not blinking, not shifting. He turned, grabbed his bag, then zipped it hard. I'll be out by 6 anyway, he threw over his shoulder. It's 4, I said, glancing at the microwave clock. 2 hours is a lifetime if someone is mad. He tapped the phone screen and read the preview. Give it, he demanded, voice level, pulse visible at his neck. I hovered over accept, then declined with a firm press. The silence afterward rang louder than the buzzer. He stepped close enough for the hairs to rise. You want quiet more than you want me alive. The sentence hit like a doorframe to the temple. I want both, I answered, and my voice didn't shake. Knuckles rapped outside down the hallway, 1-2 pause. He jerked toward the sound like a hooked fish. I lifted a finger and mouthed wait with intent. We held still until the steps drifted away. Breathing drill, I said, mirroring 4 counts with hands. He tried once, broke on 3, then tried again. On the 4th round, his shoulders dropped half an inch. My own lungs finally found rhythm beside his. The phone vibrated again and slid a few inches. He snatched it, then placed it back with effort. I'm not running, he said, nostrils flaring, eyes wet. That's brave, I said, and meant every syllable. Call the team, he added, voice small, throat tight. I opened the saved number and hit start. He paced in a small square while it rang. I watched his hands so I'd know when to step in. Answer calm intake, short questions, clear steps. He looked at me when they asked location. I nodded once and gave the address aloud. He closed his eyes and leaned into the armrest. They can swing by within an hour, I relayed. Okay, he blew out, legs bouncing, gaze fixed on the rug. No sirens, I confirmed, and my grip eased. Good, he whispered, and the room steadied. He stood and started gathering his scattered things. You can leave those here, I offered without pressure. Feels safer if I'm ready, he replied, shoulders tight. The bag zipper stalled and his hands began to tremble. I moved to the kitchen and filled 2 glasses. He took one in both hands and sipped carefully. Tell me if the thoughts spike, I said quietly. He nodded twice, then set the glass down too hard. Another buzz at the panel, 3 short taps, then silence. We traded looks and stayed frozen for 10 seconds. Could be them, he guessed, voice thin, hope fragile. Or not, I answered, and we waited it out. The intercom crackled and a calm voice introduced herself. I pressed the door release and told them to come up. He wiped his eyes and squared his shoulders quickly. By the time they knocked, he looked composed enough. 2 workers stepped in with notebooks still closed. Walk with us inside, when offered, palms visible. He glanced at me and nodded once without words. They picked chairs, not the couch, and he followed suit. They talked in short lines and watched his hands. He traced half circles on his knee, then clenched. Staying here is possible if structure holds, they said. He met my eyes and gave the faintest nod. Another option is a brief stay to stabilize, they added. He stiffened and looked at the floor for a beat. I can try one more night here, he answered carefully. Eyes on me again, like a contract was forming. We do a check-in at 9, I proposed, voice even. Then lights out, then morning plan at 8. He lifted his palm and agreed with a small tap. The team sketched the steps and kept the mood steady. They left with a number and a promise to return if needed. The door clicked and we both stayed silent. He sank into the couch and rubbed his temples once. I stood by the table and waited for the next tremor. I'll keep it clean tonight, he offered, tone measured. Clean means no midnight emergencies unless we call together. Deal, he said, holding my gaze without flinching. The word deal sat between us like a loaded switch. Food first, I suggested, wallet already in my hand. He hesitated, weighing the doorway like a courtroom line. I can eat, he said, finally loosening his shoulders. We stepped into the hall and I checked the locks twice. The elevator crawled and then opened with a groan. He stood a step behind me with eyes on the numbers. Back by 7, I reminded, finger on the door. He nodded, then pressed his lips together hard. On the street, he scanned faces and kept pace close. I matched his stride and watched the corners. He kept one hand on the strap and never slowed. Almost there, I said, and his jaw unclenched. We ordered fast and kept talk to logistics. He ate carefully and drank water in small pulls. I can do this, he said, more to himself. I wanted to believe it, and fear kept me honest. Back home, he paused at the threshold like it bit. Remember 9, I reminded, keep poised at the door. Remember, he echoed, hand on his chest twice. I opened up and the air thickened again. 9 o'clock hit and the couch was empty again. He stood by the door with his bag half unzipped. You ready to check in? I asked, palms open. I'm holding, he answered, but his knee kept bouncing. We ran the checklist aloud with clipped breaths. No urges right now, no weapons nearby, no plans. He nodded after each line like passing a test. The nods looked rehearsed and brittle under pressure. Phone stays with me until morning, I reminded him. Leave me the charger at least, he countered, jaw tight. I handed over the cable and watched his eyes. He took it like a lifeline he didn't trust. Bathroom 5 minutes, door not locked, I said clearly. He moved fast and left the door a crack. Water roared for 30 seconds, then cut off. He reappeared with hands steady and breath even. 10:30 landed and the room went quiet. He arranged the blanket with careful folds and pauses. Wake me if thoughts spike, I said from the doorway. Wake me if you hear me pacing, he replied. I lay down with my shoes pointing outward. The apartment hummed in that low way before storms. I counted backward from 100 and missed numbers. Sleep hovered close and refused to land. Clatter from the kitchen punched through the silence. I was on my feet before my name formed. He was kneeling on the floor with a spoon. I needed sugar, he whispered, eyes fixed on nothing. Back to the couch, I said, keeping my tone level. He rose slowly and brushed his knees once. I'm not dropping plates, he murmured, almost a promise. Promises at midnight never hold without backup. I opened the crisis number and held my breath. You want me to call or are we stable? He dragged a hand over his face and blinked hard. Call the team, he said, shoulders slumping in defeat. I stepped into the hallway for reception and privacy. The voicemail from earlier had been cleared by staff. Now a live voice answered with calm timing. I gave our address and requested a quiet visit. He watched me from the couch with arms crossed. You think I'm about to blow, he asked I. As Jarb. I think the ground is moving under us, I said. He looked away and pressed his knuckles together. Knocking 2 short taps, a pause, then another. He inhaled once and stood before I could move. Sit, I whispered, hand up, body blocking the path. He sat and bit his lip until the door opened. 2 workers stepped in with soft voices and measured steps. Let's talk through the last hour, one suggested. He described the kitchen, then the rush, then the panic. They listened and kept their pens still and closed. Tonight we can secure sleep with support, they offered. Short observation, back tomorrow if goals hold. He stared at the floor for a long breath. How short, he asked, voice thin, shoulders drawn. Overnight with check-ins every hour, the worker replied. No restraints unless risk spikes, the other added. He glanced at me and rubbed his wrist twice. I want rest that doesn't scare him, he said. My chest loosened 1 notch and tightened again. I'll drive behind if they transport, I offered. No need, they said, pointing to the form. He signed with a firm stroke and shaky fingers. He packed quickly and paused at the threshold once. Don't change the locks, he muttered without looking back. Your spot is here if the plan holds, I answered. He swallowed and followed them into the hall. I stood with my hand on the deadbolt and listened. Elevator doors closed and the building went mute. I placed his spare key on the table by instinct. Then I moved it to the drawer and hesitated. The worker called me 20 minutes later with updates. Settled in, low agitation, try to sleep, she said. I thanked her and stared at the ceiling alone. Relief and shame braided tight and refused to separate. 1 a.m. crawled past and the phone vibrated again. Unknown number, new message, we're outside, open up. I froze and checked the peephole with my pulse racing. The hallway was empty and my legs felt hollow. I blocked the number and saved the screenshot. If it belonged to that contact, we had proof. I emailed the team with the image and timestamp. They replied received and promised to document it. I stretched on the couch and left the bedroom dark. Every creak sounded like footsteps at my door. I rehearsed what I would say if trouble knocked. My voice sounded convincing and scared in my head. 320, another ping, same number, new threat. We know the apartment, pay what's owed tonight. I typed back a single line and then deleted it. I turned the phone face down and gripped my wrists. Dawn finally scraped across the blinds like a warning. I brewed coffee and forced half a sandwich down. The team texted discharge review at noon if stable. I circled noon in my mind like a trial date. I scrubbed the sink and wiped the table twice. Cleaning when I'm anxious makes it feel survivable. The key in the drawer bothered me like a splinter. I took it out and placed it by the door. At 11, the building alarm blared for drill. People clattered down the stairs in noisy clusters. I stood in the hall with my phone raised. No sign of strangers and no sign of him. Noon, the call came in crisp and controlled. Good night, steady mood, preparing discharge, the worker reported. Any safety barriers you want documented, she asked. Yes, I answered, no unannounced visitors and nightly check-ins. At 12:40, the elevator opened with a smooth glide. He stepped out with a paper packet tucked under his arm. I slept, he said, a little surprised, almost relieved. You ready to keep the agreement, I asked. He glanced at the key by the door and paused. Can I have it back now, he asked carefully. After a joint call to review boundaries, I replied. He exhaled and nodded and tapped the packet twice. We called the team on speaker with the door closed. We set curfew, check-ins, and escalation steps in writing. He read each line aloud and tapped the table once. When he finished, he held out his hand and waited. I placed the key in his palm and didn't speak. He slid it into his pocket and looked at the floor. I can keep this safe if you keep me honest, he said. The room held still while the words settled like a test. 6 came and went, then a sharp knock hit the frame. I opened to find him pale, damp, breathing fast. Lost track, he muttered, eyes flicking past my shoulder. I stepped aside and my stomach tightened hard. He dropped his bag and checked his pockets twice. Any messages for me, he asked, voice too casual. Only from that number, I answered, showing the screenshot. He stared, then wiped his face with the back of his hand. We should call your worker now, I pushed, tone steady. Later, he countered, already pacing a short stripe. Not optional tonight, I warned, pointing to the table. He stopped, then nodded once like swallowing a stone. On speaker, the coordinator walked us through options. He listened with clenched jaw and both feet. Ed planted. Safe here if we keep every step, I repeated. He whispered yes, but the yes felt brittle. We hung up and he headed for the kitchen. Hold, I said, palm up, blocking the doorway cleanly. Sit first, plan the night, then move. He froze, then turned, eyes shining with a hard edge. I can't be watched like a client, he fired. This is structure, not punishment, I answered without blinking. He laughed once, short and sharp, then went quiet. The quiet felt like a loaded spring. My phone lit and rattled across the tabletop. New text from the same number, louder in its tone. Meet tonight or we hit the door, final warning. He read it and backed into the couch. We're not paying anything, I said as my chest tightened. Then I've got to go settle it, he whispered. That breaks the deal and brings danger here. He stared at the door like it might speak. I can book you a motel now, I offered. 2 nights, prepaid, clean, anonymous. He swallowed, eyes wet, knuckles pressed into his knees. You want me gone so you can breathe. I want you safe without this pressure cooker, I answered. Your bed is conditional and tonight crosses the line. He stood and closed in to read my face. Say it straight or stop pretending. You can't stay here tonight, I kept my voice calm. I'll pay for the room and a ride share. He reeled back like I threw something heavy. Then you're choosing comfort over me again. The intercom crackled and a voice asked my unit. He flinched hard and grabbed for his bag. I killed the call without speaking and watched the door. We both counted 3 beats and waited for footsteps. Pack essentials only, I said, moving to the closet. He didn't argue, he just zipped with quick jerks. I'll check you in under my name, I added. Don't, he snapped, then dropped his gaze to the floor. Anonymous then, I corrected, thumb flying across the screen. A room popped free and I secured it fast. He stared at the carpet like it might swallow him. I hate leaving like a problems, he murmured. You're not a problem, the threat is, I said plainly. We'll review tomorrow with staff on the call. He nodded once, not looking up, shoulders set. That resolve shook me more than the message did. I slid cash into a small envelope and held it out. For food and extra nights if needed, I said. He hesitated, then took it with a stiff hand. Feels like hush money, he muttered under his breath. Call it runway, I countered, grabbing my keys and jacket. I'll ride down and wait until check-in. He pulled the hood up and squared his stance. Don't follow me inside, he told me, jaw firm. We moved to the hall and I locked behind us. Elevator doors mirrored back 2 tired people who didn't blink. He dug a nail into his palm and forced a smile. I'll text when I reach the desk. On the sidewalk, he paused and scanned both directions. No tails, I said, watching the corners and doorways. He grabbed my sleeve once, then let go quickly. I can handle this part, he breathed. The rideshare pulled up and he opened the rear door. He looked at me like waiting for a last-minute rescue. I didn't offer one and it hurt to stand there. Text on arrival, I managed, every word heavy. The car slid away and my hands shook badly. A new ping arrived with a location stamp and 1 word. Here? I exhaled once and felt nothing settle. Another ping landed before I reached the lobby. From his friend, not the number, not the team. You kicked him out for your piece, unbelievable. My throat burned and my thumbs hovered over reply. I typed 6 tight lines and deleted 3. He has a bed tonight and a plan tomorrow. This is safety, not abandonment, and I paid. I hit send and braced for whatever came. Her answer arrived fast and hit hard. Shelter would have helped if you weren't controlling. I pocketed the phone and stared at the elevator. Doors opened and I let 2 neighbors pass. Back inside, the apartment looked exactly the same. I moved the couch cushion like testing a fault line. The room kept his outline anyway and it stung. I locked the latch and pressed my forehead against it. The phone lit again with a short voice clip. I checked in, I'm fine, see you tomorrow. His tone held steady and it steadied me. Then the silence after it roared. I woke to 3 new messages and a missed call. His checkout time blinked on my screen like a timer. First text read I'm up, second read packing, third read wait. I stood by the door and felt the hinge bite. Fourth message landed with a location pin and 2 words. Meet lobby. I grabbed my wallet and walked to the elevator. My hand stopped shaking when the doors closed. He leaned against the wall near the mailboxes, shoulders tight. A folded receipt stuck from his pocket like a ticket. No issues at the desk, he said, looking past me. Good, I answered, and the word felt thin. I can return for clothes or cut ties today. He watched my face as if measuring fallout. Return to collect, then we decide where you sleep. His jaw worked once, then settled into a hard line. I found a hotline bed for tonight, he offered. Shelter intake at 4 if I show up early. That's safer than my place with those threats. He nodded and relief flashed quick before pride masked it. We walked back upstairs without speaking more than needed. At my door he paused and tapped the latch. This thing, he muttered, like blaming a small machine. It kept us alive, I said, and he didn't argue. Inside, he moved straight to his bag and sorted quickly. I stood near the hallway and checked the time. 15 minutes, I said, and he lifted 2 fingers. That signal was new and somehow steadier than words. A knock hit next door and both of us froze. Not ours, but close enough to trigger alarms. He inhaled through his nose and counted on his fingertips. I mirrored the count until the tension drained a notch. Your friend thinks I exiled you, I added quietly. He grimaced and looked at the floor with tight lips. She's angry for me and sometimes at me, he muttered. Will you answer her later, I pressed, watching his hands. I'll send something simple with the plan and address. He zipped the bag halfway and checked the corners once. Do you want me to come to intake, I asked. Stay reachable, don't stand in line with me. The phone on the table buzzed with a new alert. Different number, short sentence, wrong apartment, sorry. He read it over my shoulder and exhaled sharply. Still leaving, I said, and he gave one slow nod. He handed me the motel keycard and the folded receipt. Keep the deposit if they call, he added, eyes tired. I'm not your banker, I answered, softer than planned. Then use it for more nights if you need. His mouth twitched like he almost smiled and then stopped. You hated that I crashed here, he pushed once. I hated watching you slide and guessing the drop, I said. He looked at the door and blinked fast. Last check, I said, holding my phone between us. He recited the safety steps without missing a beat. You're steadier than yesterday, I acknowledged with a nod. Only because you forced the break, he admitted. We took the stairs to avoid neighbors and gossip. Outside, he pulled his hood tight and scanned the block. I'll text at intake. If I bail, call the team. You won't bail, I said, and hoped I wasn't lying. A bus rumbled up and he stepped toward it. He turned back once as if to rewind choices. Thank you for the room, even if you hate me. I don't hate you, I hate chaos. He boarded and disappeared between shoulders and backpacks. I stood on the curb until the tail lights vanished. My phone vibrated with a voice message from his friend. You made him homeless for quiet, own it. I climbed back upstairs and typed my reply carefully. He has a bed tonight because I set limits. Call me cruel if you want, but he's breathing. I hit send and braced for another round. Her response landed hard and immediate. You could have protected him without pushing him out. I stared at the screen until my eyes stung. Then I opened the app and started the post. Title typed itself like a dare I couldn't dodge. Am I wrong for sending a depressed friend out? I laid out scenes, not adjectives, and asked for judgment. My thumb hovered, then I pressed submit and waited. A comment stacked fast, then another, then a thread. Some called me heartless, others called me careful. I read 10 and realized none of them were here. Still, their words bit and made me rethink the hinges. The call came at 3, short and steady. Checked in, keeping the bed, group at 7. I stood in the kitchen and counted my breaths. He stayed on the line for one more beat. Come for the meeting tomorrow if you can. Only if you want me there, I answered. Bring the rules, we'll show them, he said. Done, I replied, and the line clicked off. Evening spilled into the apartment like borrowed time. I packed a small bag for tomorrow's meeting. Rules, contacts, copies of everything that calmed storms. I left it by the door like a promise. At 8, another message from his friend appeared. I read it twice and didn't type a word. You did the right thing the wrong way. Maybe both are true, I thought, and sat down. The door rattled once and my body jolted. Just the building settling, not a threat, not a test. I stayed still until my heartbeat lowered in steps. Quiet finally came and I didn't trust it. At 9, the coordinator called with next steps. Case manager at noon, intake forms ready, 2 signatures. Can he return after group? I asked, voice careful. Not tonight, review after 3 stable days. I wrote that down and left the pin exactly there. No return until stability, no exceptions, no shortcuts. My chest hurt and my hands relaxed anyway. I could live with firm lines if he lived too. Near M. I'd night a final text buzzed the nightstand. From him short, direct, needed. I'm safe, I'm angry, I'm grateful, I'll try. I stared at those 4 pieces and let them cut. I lay back and looked at the ceiling like a map. Tomorrow would bring forms, witnesses, and another decision. I chose the latch tonight and paid for distance. If he stumbles again, I'll choose it again or break.